Good morning. It is surprisingly chilly. I've gotten used to our 100-degree days that we were having last week. Triple digit days in September is so wrong. But you get used to it. And then the smoke rolls in and the temperature drops like 20 degrees, and I forget to turn off the swamp cooler, and then I have a really cold studio. So, thanks for anyone who's joining in. I've got my Irish coffee to help warm me up. And my plan for this morning is to escape the smoky smog and go back to Green River Lakes, spot I visited early this summer. Well, I guess it wasn't early summer, earlier this summer. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And I took a lot of pictures. This was one of them. Can't actually see the river or well, no, I think bottom left corner. I can see a little tiny sliver of the river in my reference. But the view here is mainly the mountains and the evening light from the sun setting hitting those mountains. It's one of my favorite times of day. Just ask my husband. I'm not allowed to drive during sunset because my eyes will be on the sky and the mountains and not on the road where they belong. To get started, I've mixed up kind of a nice pale yellow. This is kind of my preferred way of starting a sunset scene. I just want to get rid of the white of my canvas and add a little warmth to the underneath. I'm working on Arches oil paper. It's a nice surface for studies. It's got a very unique quality to it. Most of the time I'm working on a firm panel, ACM panel, illustration board, something of that nature. And depending on how I prepare and gesso those surfaces, they can be very absorbent or not very absorbent at all. And when they're not absorbent, they're really good for like wiping out. The Arches oil paper is thirsty. It's a thirsty, thirsty girl. And so I'm using my Gamsol pretty heavily to thin this out and get it this starting layer to act more like a watercolor. And because this paper is so absorbent and the Gamsol evaporates so quickly, especially in the dry climate I live in, that's gonna be dry in no time. So now, get my maul stick out of the way so I can see my reference. Now I'm gonna start drawing in. Thank you, Taco, for the follow. I know it's Tacor, but Taco is more fun. And for anyone who watches this later and thinks I'm making fun of the people who follow my stream, that is my husband. It is my prerogative to make fun of him. You can't steal my burrito. I already ate it. Ha! All right. So using that same pile of kind of pale yellow paint that I've mixed up and the edge of my nice big flat brush. No, not my enchiladas. Those are mine. I'm gonna just lay in some rough markers of where things go. What I'm looking at when I do this is my, like, where is the edge of the mountains? Over on the left side, right? Here's my halfway point. It's a little less than the halfway point. It hits down about there. We've got an overall angle that runs about like so. Right, there's some little details and stuff we can carve into that, like right about here. See, the paper is not good for wipeout. That's okay. This is all going to get covered up anyways, and because it's a nice pale yellow, it's going to be easy to cover up. So we've got a little divot there, and another little divot there, a nice peak there, some shadowy stuff, and this slope. Is that too steep? That's too steep. One trend I've noticed, right, because art is all about observation, observing not just your subject matter, but observing your tendencies about that subject matter. And one of my tendencies is to increase the y-axis, especially when painting things like mountains and stuff. They're a lot longer and flatter and skinnier in the height than I think of them in my head. So an angle that should go almost horizontal, I paint like super steep. So I have to pay attention to that about myself and try to compensate for it. So that was just marking in kind of the hills. And then our other big element is trees. All right, my trees almost meet the mountain peaks there. And I've got a big tree over here on the left, and I'm not convinced I love him. So we're going to leave him out for now. See what that does to our painting. And if we like it without him, we'll just leave him out. If it needs something, we can always add him back in, paint him in at the end. And it will be the very end. Yeah, right now I'm just focusing on the big simple statement. I've essentially got three values, three focal elements. I've got the sky, which is all a light value. I've got my mountains, which really the lighting is so soft. There's so much fill light from the sky that even though we've got a warm up here and cool down here on the transition, value wise, it's kind of all one value grouping. So I'm going to mark that temperature transition of sunlight versus skylight, but that bottom portion is essentially all one element. Get some coffee. And the third element and the darkest element is our trees. And almost hate to even sketch them in because I know I'm just going to cover this up with paint, pretty opaque paint when I'm painting the gradients of the uh, mountains and hills, but just for my own kind of figuring it out, we'll sketch them in a little bit. They are by far the darkest value, not only because they're in the shade, but their local color is, a nice dark green, as pine trees are wont to do. They like to be dark. They're so emo. Is that okay? I think I've painted the bottom of those trees a little too close to the edge of my picture plane. So we're gonna dip my rag in a little bit of Turpenoid and just kind of wipe out the bottom of them. That's better. And, and this is all just kind of dark. Dark, 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 dark. And even though this paint is, or this surface, I should say, is super absorbent, the oil paints, of course, take a while to dry. But in the last study I did, I found that painting thin on my first layers with some Gamsol meant that by the time I got to my final layers, I went back over those very starting points. It was like painting on a dry surface. So I'm not, with this particular surface, I am not worried about this titanium white and cad yellow mixture that I'm drawing with lifting up into my darks. On a different surface, that would be a whole different story. I would not paint these in like this. I would just outline them the way I did the mountains. But I think that's the lane. That's the drawing. That looks not too terrible to me. I think get that mountain in the distance. Describe that slope there. The river there. Right along that hill. And I like the S curve. This hill has a wonderful dynamic swoop and swoop. I heard the notification. I didn't see what it was. Shout out to whoever and whatever that notification was for. Okay. Time for my favorite part, the mixing of the gradients. Hey! Thanks for the follow, Dink, and thanks for letting me know what the notification was. Appreciate it. All right, gradients. Starting, oh, I should mark in the clouds. Thank you for the follow, Combustible Dan. I'm figuring this out, guys. I'm a Twitch noob, but with the help of my awesome spouse, who has more experience with streaming than I do, I will get it figured out. Okay. So I know earlier I had said I have three elements: the sky, the mountain, and the trees. And I was grouping the clouds value-wise into the sky for that initial block in. But now that I have those three big elements put in, the clouds are an important enough composition element that I do want to mark them out as well before I start mixing my gradients for that sky. All right, so what's important to me, this little window of blue, this sweeping direction up, and then we've got this poof in the upper left corner, and this sweep here, and then the clouds on the horizon. Okay, now that gives me enough information. So I am going to start mixing the blue for the top. Oh, I'm pointing out my reference. You can't see my reference. The top portion up here. It's kind of a lovely purpley blue. And pro tip for getting better at mixing paints, what I will actually do is I've got my reference pulled up in Procreate to the left of me, or to the right of me, rather. Directions. And I will actually color pick a section after I hypothesize on what is that color? How warm, how cool is it? How light is it? How saturated, desaturated is it, right? All those things. Kind of meditate on the color drop it, and then see how accurate I was by looking at the actual color picker drop down in Procreate. And this is also how I got a lot better at color mixing, is I will mix up my color. Again, this is essentially a hypothesis I am testing of, I think, based on my previous experiences, that a little bit of quinacridone rose and phthalo turquoise with a bunch of titanium white will get me a nice purpley blue. And that, I think, hue and temperature wise, is pretty spot on. But it's too dark. I want it lighter. I want to keep those mid-tones available for the mountains and the hills. And also the clouds, right? I want to be able to get some good color in the clouds, and the clouds are ever so slightly darker, for the most part, than the sky. There's a couple spots that have some highlights that are a little bit brighter than the sky. And then I'll take my palette knife, which you can see that I've been mixing with down here. Hold it up to the camera. And hold it with the paint on it up to my iPad. Now, the thing to be wary of, the iPad is emitting light, whereas my paints are only reflecting light. So things are going to look different. I'm not going to be able to get a perfect match between my paint and the iPad. But it kind of helps clue me in, especially if I squint my eyes, on if I'm close or not. And then I can, and further along in the painting, because right now there's nothing for me to refer to in the painting. Art is all about comparison and relativity. There's nothing to relate it to. So relating it to my reference is more useful at this point in time. And I think that's still, or that, not still, that's a little more purple. So if I want to shift it towards blue, rather than adding blue, I'm actually going to add a tiny bit of phthalo turquoise. Oh yeah, there it is. That's more like it. Pretty subtle shift. I don't know if my camera can even pick it up. But that feels better to me. Now, as I move down the sky, it is going to get lighter and warmer. So we're going to take a bunch of titanium white, a little bit of phthalo green, and this is a weird thing I've noticed about these pigments. Phthalo green is warmer than ultramarine blue, but it mixes so well with this rose. It's kind of like, you know, printer inks. You've got your cyan, magenta, yellow, and then whatever the fuck K is. Um, and I can, this mixture, the quinacridone rose and phthalo turquoise, just gives me so much control over purples. I can shift them from pink to blue, and it's just gorgeous. So that mixture was way too pink. That's, of course, way too turquoise, but combine them together, get some more white, which I clearly did not put enough out on my palette. There we go. And now I have a color that is just slightly warmer, and maybe not quite high enough in value. We'll add a little more white. And lighter, yeah, it's better. Lighter in value than the top of my sky. And I think for this particular piece, I may only need that window. I think I'm going to want a little bit of a transition in between these two. So take a little bit of my blue, a little bit of my purple, and I want it to be a little more warm. So I'm going to add a little bit of that phthalo turquoise. There we go. Now I have a transition between those two colors. Now I can paint the sky. And this is the thing with oil painting, or at least the way I paint. A good 50% of the painting actually happens on the palette. Okay. Titanium white, refilled. And do I want to take my big brush? Yeah, I'll keep working with this same big brush. Just a 1-inch flat. Make sure I wipe out as much of the paint from earlier with my paper towel. Which I think I need a new one. Any lint-free rag works great. I am partial to the blue shop towels. They're sturdy, they're lint-free. You can get them cheap, bulk at Costco. Couldn't ask for more. Okay, and I know this surface, I'm actually worried I didn't mix up enough paint because this surface is so festive. We're just gonna start up at the top with a light touch, dropping in our purple. By the way, guys, I don't have music. I thought I was going to have music, but I'm working on a Mac. And Macs are a little funky about audio capture. Oh, there we go. So, no music today. So when I start to tunnel vision, stop talking, you can totally go like turn on your own music. Listen to whatever makes you happy. Um, do I want to paint through my clouds? There's a little bit of background showing through. Just like there. There we go. Okay. I'm going to mix my purple with a little bit of my blue, right? So even though I've got these three piles of paint, I'm going to mix them together as I go down so that I can get nice soft transitions. And that is also part of why I am working with these vertical brush strokes. A couple of reasons. One, I'm almost working like a printer. Left to right, top to bottom. And the vertical strokes blend from one line into the next very nicely. And also, because I am working with a physical medium, not just pixels, right? If I was a digital artist, all I would need is the right color, the right value, the right temperature, in the right place with the right edge. And that's sort of almost all I need here. But the paint quality adds a whole nother dimension. And part of that dimension is glare. And because light is coming from the top with vertical brush strokes, my brush strokes are in line with the light. And that way, when the light it doesn't catch the actual brush strokes, which I'm working thin enough, it probably isn't a big deal, but if I was painting thicker, it would be a big deal. Let's darken this up just a little bit. There we go. Get a little bit cleaner color. And if I were to do these gradients horizontally, just like this, I'd have brush strokes running this way. And every little microscopic ridge would be catching the light and create a lot of glare. And glare is kind of the bane of my existence right now. Because I'm in a... The other way to reduce glare is really like distance. I want you even brighter and warmer. Let's add a little bit of our yellow mixture. Boop, boop, boop. I forgot what I was saying. I got tunnel visioned on color mixing. That's okay. Oh, is that a dog hair? Get out. No one wants you. Come here. There we go. Another bane of my existence. Dog hairs. That's what I was talking about. Glare! One of the other ways to eliminate glare is to have distance between your lights and your surface. And I am in a teeny tiny studio. Not as tiny as I've been in before, but a small studio in my basement. And the basement has very low ceilings. Those low ceilings mean my lights do not have distance. And without distance, I have glare. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. Okay, that gradient is looking pretty good. A little bit lighter. especially as we move towards the right. We get that light, warm light bouncing off of the clouds and striking the atmosphere. It's making the sky right above the edge of our mountains. Very light. Ooh, that's too blue. Very light and very warm. So adding a little yellow to my mixture to warm it up. Oh, you're too stark. Go away. And this is where painting thinly over my golden undertone is really helpful for getting that underlying warmth, right? That's one of the things I love about Sunday sunsets is that warmth, the golden hour. It is called that for a reason. Oh my God, half an hour in, all I've got is the sky. I am a slow painter. Okay, more mixing the clouds. Now, the sky felt or feels really dark right now, but I needed the space to go bright in my clouds. So those are really bright and really golden. So we'll take titanium white, a little bit of the earlier cad yellow mixture. That cad yellow is still too strong, so we're going to dilute it further, more white, tinier bits of yellow. And that is going to be my brightest bright. Do I typically start with a yellow undertone? That's a good question. I'd like to start with a warm undertone fairly consistently, but that's not always yellow. I definitely custom my undertone to whatever the subject matter is that I am painting. If I'm doing a sunset, very probably going to be starting with a yellow undertone. Um, if I'm doing something else, it might be totally different. Sometimes I don't do an undertone. Just it's a combination. It's a little bit of alchemy of what am I painting and what am I feeling and what technique do I want to experiment and play with at any given day. Tiniest bit of cad red, like seriously, I don't know if you can even see that on my palette knife because those cadmiums are so intense. Whew. And I think that's not a color I actually want, but it will be useful to mix in to other colors as I create my cloud pigment. So right now I'm mixing for the sky up here. I've got some bright gold highlights, and then I've got some still very bright, but more kind of orange and pinky light in here. And very helpfully, I still have my color streak from earlier. So while I'm on my palette, I can just look and see that red, similar value to my sky, which means it's too dark. Need more light. White and light. Need both those things. That's more like it. That will be a nice transition. And then we want one that's even cooler. So reaching for that quinacridone rose. I don't actually know if I'm saying that right. It's spelled Quinacri. Done. Done. Quinacridone. Quinacridone? I don't know. Is that too light? Nah, that's good. Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's a beautiful pink. Okay, so that gives me all my highlights for the clouds. And the clouds that are highlighted are in the back. So I'm going to start with them, working my way back to front. And that's another one of those things you may have heard, always paint back to front. I hate anything that says always. Again, it depends. What am I painting? How am I painting it? When working on a landscape, alla prima, working back to front is a real solid technique. But there are times where I will start with my figure or whatever my main focal point is and paint that first, and then work my way out around it from there. And I've switched brushes now. I could do this with the big brush, but it's got enough pigment in it that is difficult enough to wipe out and remove. And I want these colors as bright and pure and clean as I can get them. So I'm using a fresh brush. Actually, I want to gray that out just a little bit as we transition over here, a little bit warmer. Yeah, there we go. That's a nice gradient on that sky. Am I enlarging it too much? Possibly. That pink really only goes to like there. And we've got the oranges. A little bit more orange. And there. Yeah, buddy. Now things get a little more cool and muddy. They're still very bright. A little more gray. So mix some purple in with our yellow to get, oh, that's so nice. These little shadowy bits of cloud. And actually we can go even darker on those as they are. Is that too gray? That's too gray. We want you a little more purple. We want them to be close in value, but a little bit darker than the sky. And I'll do the same thing with my brush that I'll do with my palette knife. But now instead of holding it up to my reference, I'm holding it up to the painting and just looking at the paint of on my brush and saying, is that what I want? And if it is, lay it down. And if it's not, come back here and adjust. I just want to soften and blend that edge with a little Nice transition from the pink back to the gold and the yellow. There we go. Man stains. And more kind of pinky gray red for these guys up here, as those clouds are kind of in shadow. Once again, these are just a smidge darker than my clouds. Did I get that too dark? I think I did get that too dark. Let's come in, just blend right on the canvas to brighten that up and work it into my sky. Nice soft edges. Now there's a couple different ways I could work here. I could, because I've really zoomed in. I started very zoomed out with like sky, mountains, that's it. Now I'm coming in on like little tile by little tile, little shape by little shape. And I could do a more zoomed out, like get the overall gradient, then do the clouds. But I find this working wet into wet, this alla prima, that I struggle with. I prefer layers. Um, it works well for me to just little brushstroke by little brushstroke, segment by segment, so that I can really get those delicate gradient transitions. I'm all about the gradients. Gradients are my favorite. There's so much science to gradients too. That might be another reason I really like them. It's all about the fall off of the light. And that's too great. How different wavelengths of light literally fall off. Like as there's a shadow, the longer wavelengths of light, right? You've got your shadow, your cutoff, and as it goes down, the darker or the longer wavelengths, the reds and everything will extend a little bit further past that shadow line, which is what creates the lovely transition from warm, from like gold to orange to red to purple. That rainbow without actually being a rainbow. It's great. Let's do, yeah. You're bright, but not my brightest. Let's actually grab orange. I was about to lay in that bright gold, but then I noticed that there's a little light hitting this cloud, and it is way brighter than the light hitting the cloud I'm actively painting. So I need this cloud to be bright, but not as bright, so that I have room to go brighter elsewhere. Feeling like maybe I went too dark on the sky. That's okay. Let's get things laid in. Give us something to compare to. Then we can take a fresh look at it and reassess. This is all super soft, kind of blending into the sky. So we'll just scumble that. Okay. Kind of gives me some overall color on those upper clouds. Not sure I'm in love with them. We'll get there. I think it's just not clean enough color on the background. I might be fighting with my surface a little bit. So dry, so tacky. This is only like the third painting I've done on this particular surface, the Arches oil paper, and it's different. That is for sure. Okay, I want you guys significantly darker and warmer than the sky. Is that too dark? Maybe a little bit. Lighten you up. Thin you out with a little bit of oleo gel. That looks better. Oh yeah, and that's a nice duskier, slightly purple. Like it's pink, but it's purple. Because again, everything is relative. Medium, lighter, bluer. Yeah, I went too dark on that sky. Because that cloud feels right to me, but the sky behind it does not. So we're gonna remix and apply back in. Lots of white. Tiny bit of blue. No, bless me. Tiny bit of yellow. Not as white as our clouds, but still very light and bright. That looks better. Thank you, Dacor. The joy of allergies. Okay, let's put this in. See if it makes our cloud look better. I'm gonna apply this a little bit thickly. Yeah, that's more like it. That's more like it. Yeah, that's better. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool. There's a little bit of a dry brushy effect happening there, using some nice thick paint over almost dry layers. That lets the texture of the paper show through. Kind of dig it. Oh yeah, that's so much better. Yeah, it's what we needed. Okay, let's reassess the sky. We want more of you here. It's nice bright blue. We're gonna go up into here. We also have bits of you in here. Oh yes. Oh yes. Maybe I'm going too bright. I feel like I have a tendency to stay too bright and white, but I think it's what this guy needs. And it's still definitely not white, which is another reason to tone the surface, is it actually makes it, at least for me, a little bit easier to judge the colors and the pigments I'm laying down when they're not, you know, up against pure white, because then everything just looks so dark until I have everything covered. Then I'm like, oh, it's too light. A bit of yellow as we get in over here. There we go. That looks better to me. Okay, now we're gonna work our way up. A little bit of blue there. Lighter. Yeah, that's looking much better to me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, I almost don't even need to mix a gradient because I've already got my gradient down and it's still just wet enough that I'm working into it and kind of mixing on the surface as I brighten it up. Just a value or two. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That feels better. Let us resume clouds. Where was I? I was working with some dark and pale and purpley clouds over here. So let's get these guys marked in. Oh, that's nice. Now I've got, this is the nice thing about working back to front, is with some delicate handling of my brush, I can choose if something has a hard edge. No, that's too warm. Or a soft edge. I want you even more purple. Yeah. And just work it into the background. Okay, I'm getting way too zoomed in. Let's step back. I didn't step back because I'm sitting, but I am actually literally sitting further back in my chair and holding my brush handle at the far end to give myself a little distance and perspective. Going back to getting that overall statement. Now see, that's too close in value. Oh, because I didn't mix new piles. I'm still working from my highlight piles. Let's mix a new shadow pile. Okay. I might need to get a dark in just to give me something to cue off of because that looks so dark. But looking at my palette, it's not actually that dark. It's just now the darkest thing on my painting. So let's get the color of those hills. Just kind of a pinky, orangey gray. Too pink. I think that's about the right value though. Oh yes, that's about the right value. Let's gray you out with some Viridian. Maybe I want you a smidge warmer and lighter. So we'll add you. Yeah, that looks great for the mountain value. Okay. Let's lay that in really quick. Okay. Yes, I did go too dark on those clouds. So that is totally what I want for my mountains. Too dark, too dark, too dark. Let's try Yeah, that's more like it. And we shift towards the warm as we get over here. Not colder, warmer. Yeah, that's better. Oh, we're officially at the halfway mark as far as time goes. Not as far as the painting goes. That's for damn sure. A little bit of light peeking through right in there. There we go. That's nice. Let's get that nice soft edge there. Okay, want some nice warm pinks right in here where the light hits that. Oh yeah, baby. Oh baby, oh baby. Actually, that same color, same kind of orange, is right up here in these clouds. Because these clouds are so much closer to the viewer, they are darker. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just so dry. Sometimes I really like the dry brushy effect. Other times it's not quite the look I want. Man, I don't know if it's just because I'm streaming, but I'll be honest, struggling with this study more than the last couple I did, I feel like. It's just kind of interesting to note. Going back to making observations. Probably also doesn't help that not only am I struggling with the surface, the paints I'm working with are like they've been in the freezer in and out for the last week or so. So they're feeling a little stiff too. So absorbent paper plus stiff paint. It's kind of a tricky combo. Not not ideal, that's for sure. I just kind of gotta trust in the process and keep working. It should all come together eventually. Maybe I just need less talky, more worky. I cannot talk and paint at the same time. Ah, okay, that's starting to come together. Yeah, paint is feeling stiffer than I would prefer. That is for sure. I'm going for some nice soft edges though, as I try to get things to lay down where I want them to. Which I guess I can't complain too much about. Oh, we want you to be darker and warmer. There we go. Yeah, that out. There we go. That's starting to feel like something. So let's bring back that clean yellow blue so that we can cut in some of those harder edges. Oh, those didn't come out hard. Okay. Yep, we're just softening and blending and mixing, which is not quite what I want in that area. So we'll leave that alone for now. We'll come back to it later. Gotta get our big simple statement. We're getting lost in the details. Yeah, streaming the process slows down the process. That makes perfect sense. Stopping to or slowing down to articulate and think with about my process with the frontal lobe and not just get into the zone and do it all more intuitively. Okay, let's get that clean spot of white back there. And there. Just a little bit there too. Oh, that helps so much. All of you darker. Yeah, that helps. It helps a lot. Okay, sky. Done enough. We better move on. And I might end up going late. Last study like this I had intended to spend maybe 2 hours on it. I think I ended up painting an extra hour. I might do that again today. Okay. Ooh. Now I'm gonna kind of do the same thing for my background. I want to mix those gradients. Got to start kind of a middle dark value. But I actually want to start with this corner up here. It is fairly bright. Oh, that's too orange. Way too orange. That's okay. We'll add a little viridian. There we go. That helps neutralize it out. Doesn't neutralize it too much though. And that looks pretty good. I think I do want it a little bit brighter. Little cad yellow, little quinacridone. I don't want all of that, and I want it a little more yellow. Yeah. Back for the texture of it, just for fun. This is a study. Let's experiment. Let's just take our palette knife and go. I want a little bit cleaner, purer color. A little more yellow. A little more red. More white. Ooh, the white cooled that off. A little more yellow. A little more white. There we go. That feels like light hitting rocks. That is significantly darker than my clouds. Let's take you and just like get that edge in there. Let the paint. Yeah, yeah. And then what I mixed earlier kind of actually pretty nicely transitions because we've got a little more gray and dark there. Those foreground hills are a little more purpley. So we'll get our maybe not quite that purpley. Maybe like that purpley? Yeah, like that purpley. That's great. I'll just mix that right on there. And I think I want a flat brush. I feel like all my flat brushes are either too big or too small. Oh, I know. Let's work with a big brush. Let's work with our brush from earlier. Maybe thin our paint out just a smidge. Help it go on nicely. And then just kind of blend out what we already have down. Yeah, that kind of worked pretty cool. That kind of got the gradient I want. Not bad, not bad. Okay, and we want this same kind of purpley for like these hills. Oh, I think when working with this surface, I really need to mix up more paint than I'm used to mixing. I'm used to working really thin. I need to mix up more paint and put it on a little more thickly. Ooh, pretty, pretty blue. That's gorgeous. If I can get you to go down the way I want you to, I'll add a little terp. No, you're too gray. But that same gray is actually going to be kind of perfect for this shadow line here. So let's lay that in. Yeah, and we want to get a little more blue as we move back. Rather than adding blue, I'm mixing my blue. Yeah, even though I've got a full palette laid out, I'm treating it like a limited palette. Like I don't think, maybe I've touched the ultramarine blue. Oh, that's too yellow. Way too yellow, way too yellow. I lied. We're going full palette range. Yeah, dry surface is dry. There we go. That works. And you're actually going to get a little bit lighter and more golden gray as we move into the foreground. There's that, like, there are no greens. They're all like pale browns as we move up into the foreground. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's not bad. Yep, that gets darker and bluer as we move back in space. I have a song stuck in my head, in case you didn't notice. That's grayer than I want it to be, because that brush is dirty. Let's do the same thing we did earlier and just a spot of clean color with the palette knife. Got more of those reds. And these hills here. And them there hills. Kind of mix that down into the grays. Not getting the light effect I want. I think it's so. I think so. That very back mountain though is such a beautiful purpley pink. I got it too gray. I want it cooler than that. That's close, too close to our sky value. We need it darker. More quinacridone. More phthalo. Ooh. To desaturate you just a little bit, which I think yellow ochre will do nicely. How are you? Yeah, that's more like it. That's the color I want for that little peak in the very back. And then we'll just soften it out a little bit. Might be a little bit too dark in value. I want you a little brighter and pinker, just a little bit. Oh, and actually, that will get us some light effects. Yeah. It's so tiny. You can't even see what I just did. That's okay. I can see it. And it is so often those little subtle spots that are my favorite spots in a painting. I want that nice red on this peak. And things get gray and purpley as the hills move down into the shadow. I think I could have gone even lighter on you. And warmer. Too dark. My paint isn't going down, so we're gonna scrape it off as best we can. That's better. But we could go even lighter though. Softer. Yeah, that's better. Let's start getting our shadows, which are really kind of a lovely, warm, desaturated. How cool is that? Okay, I'm gonna color pick. Yeah, that's fairly magenta-y. Little shadow. Too dark? Yeah, too dark. And not magenta enough. Still too dark. Man, these... And this is why I should go back to pre-mixing. These are just such subtle changes and shifts. It's a lot easier to get those kinds of transitions when working with pre-mixed piles. Pinker, warmer. There we go. Yeah, need some palette knife work. Because otherwise, it all just kind of wants to blend together using a brush. Ooh, that's a nice purple. That's fun. I'll have to remember that combo. That was alizarin crimson. Oh, you're actually kind of great for that section. Viridian and titanium white. Before I lay you down, let's scrape. Let's actually transition you like that. You belong there. We want that shadow right in there. Yeah, 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 yeah. That makes it really cool. Gray purple. And by cool, I mean both. Like, it's awesome. I Thanks, Gina. That's sweet of you to say. I don't know how long ago that chat was. Okay, let's warm you up a little bit. Yeah, or what I want. Not long ago. That's good. Yeah, I'm definitely prone to some tunnel visioning and stuff, paying attention to stuff. Okay. Yeah, these subtle transitions. Okay. That looks more like what I want those trees to be. They're an interesting combination of light hitting dark green trees, but with so much atmosphere that they're turning kind of this reddish, purpley gray. But in there are like cast shadows that also have a ton of atmosphere. So there's some blues in there too. Getting some color vibrancy bouncing off of one another. Maybe if I can get my values laid in nicely, we can start exploring that color vibrancy a little bit further down the line. Um, no, that's too just gray. They're useful for mixing, but not what I want. I want blue, but not that blue. There's where the gray comes in. Oh yeah, you're nice. You create a little bit of atmosphere. Oh, and you're nice and dark too. I thought you were too light, but you're actually exactly what I want. Let's lay you in right there. Shadow of that hill there. More purple as it moves back. Yeah! Subtle little things. They're what make me happy. Oh, and actually this almost the same gray teal. I've got a cast shadow on this hill right here. That blends up into no, we need you warmer. Warmer, I say, warmer. Get those tree lines. Actually really help describe the shift in the shape of these hills. Burp, burp. Get some blues up in here. Nope, not that blue. More purpley blue. Come here, quinacridone. There we go. What do I think? What do I think? Don't love it, don't hate it. That's what I think. It's not where I want it to be, but it's kind of slowly getting there. Nope, hate it. Ooh, that's a cool mix though. This is one of the ways I figure out mixtures. I try something and it's not at all what I want it to be, but I kind of like stick it in the back of my brain of like, well, it did this thing, so when I want to do that thing again in the future, here's how I do it. Okay, that's just too hard. There we go. And I don't want this blank. I want to be able to paint into this. Ooh, I wonder, can I essentially do a little wipeout with this thin paint? Yeah. You're usually supposed to work thin to thick, but that softened things in just the right way. That was lovely. Okay. I do want some more intense kind of pink spots on some of these highlights of these hills. Now we're going to start getting some of that color vibrancy and harmony by having things bounce off of one another next to each other. So they're kind of the same values, but by being different colors next to each other creates a lot of dynamism. Without looking up the overall legibility and read. There we go. Okay, what's bugging me? What's bugging me? That is bugging me. And by that, I mean the edge of this mountain. It's the wrong shape. And it's got too much paper showing through. So we're just going to take our palette knife, give ourselves a nice clean edge by just laying that paint right on top, not letting it blend too much with what's beneath. Getting just a little bit more brightness there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's more like it. And some little orangey highlights in there on that peak that's closest to us. I think this edge we need to soften with some shadows. Just clean up this ridge line. Some soft purpley gray shadows as we see just a little bit of the back edge of these peaks. Ooh, yes, come here. You are gonna go right there. Yeah. Because we've got these beautiful soft purples coming in where the sky is filling in those shadows. That's too light. Want it light, but not that light. Still too light. That's maybe more like it. One more purple. That looks better. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. And let's get this hill. It goes up, and we have some hill and shadow right there. That's a little more kind of a warm green, brown, gray. There we go. 15 minutes! Yeah, I'm not finishing this in 15 minutes. might get it blocked in, but I don't know if I'm going to be happy enough with this study to sign it, call it done, like I did the others. Okay, blocking it in, blocking it in. What needs to happen? I need painting speedrun. Yeah, not my skill set. I want a small flat brush. I want, ooh, actually what was that mixture? I told myself to make note of that mixture, and then I totally forgot what I did. I think it was, I know there was some transparent oxide red. Was it phthalo turquoise? Oh, that's too much turquoise. And then titanium white. That's too green. There we go. That's better. Is that too dark though? Maybe not for right there. Where we have the trees and stuff growing along the river. That's a little too dark. Let's add a little. Let's brighten up the value just a smidge. Yeah, there we go. That looks better. And we have you guys also kind of in there, starting to get that dynamism. We also have, looks like there must be a little stream that zigzags down between these peaks. Because there's some green space growing right down there, some darker trees and the like. And then the river is actually really kind of a warm gray. That is brighter than the surrounding plants, but not very bright altogether. So we'll lay that in right there. And that's a much thicker brush stroke than it needs to be. That's okay, because we're going to carve it out. There we go. There's our stroke. We go back to our kind of dark gray-green we used on the upper bank. We're going to just carve away that top portion. I think for the bottom portion, to get the sharp edge I want. Oh, first I've got to mix up more gray. What is that gray? A little bit of you. A little bit of you. More of you. Some of you. And a lot of white. Okay. How are you guys? You're maybe a little bit darker and cooler than I want. You're actually really nice for some of the accents on those hills. Let's use you. With a soft brush, so you'll blend a little bit more and pull you in to some of these areas. There we go. Now, for what I actually wanted you for, let's take that mixture. We want you lighter and more golden. Maybe warmer, a little more reddish than what that is. Then we want to lighten you up. Thanks, Gina. I'm glad you like my stream more than Dinks. I'll take that with pride. That is a badge of honor. Okay, those are great. Ooh, actually, that color is really great for the foreground. Because, yeah, let's put some of you in there. Because I think I want that foreground darker than I have it. It's too light. Meh. Scrub it in. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever be a household name like, Bob Ross. But if some people have fun while I'm doing what I'm gonna be doing anyways, that's pretty cool. And I'm always super happy to talk shop. Okay, there we go. That's what I want. Now I can cut in that river edge. And a little more of that darker gray, because there is just a little sliver right there. Okay, that was too much. So we're going to pull that away. Ooh, that gray's perfect for the sagebrush. For those of you who haven't heard yet from Takor, we are puppy sitting my brother's dog. And he's a cute boy, and he's a sweet boy, and he does not listen to us as well as he listens to my brother. And it sounds like he just ran out the door. But Takor is awesome, and is going to take care of it so that I can keep tunnel visioning on here. What else needs to happen? I want to just blend. Ooh, you have too much red on you. Blend those hills in a little more gray blue. There we go. There we go. That's nice. We've got our sagebrush, which is, oh, that's kind of a perfect gray for that. Sagebrush is some lighter gray bits with some warm dark shadows underneath, getting darker as we move into the foreground. There. Ah! I'm making a mess. I have paint on my hand and my elbow, which is, I've gotten so good about being clean, but dividing my attention. Apparently I'm resting my hand into my paper towel without even realizing it. Okay. Fresh paper towel. And scrub the paint off, especially because I will occasionally use my finger to blend. Actually, I'm going to do that right now along that mountain ridge. And you have to have a clean finger in order for that to work nicely. So I do not want paint on my hands. It would be smarter if I used gloves, because while I don't have any lead white on my palette, I do have some heavy metals and the cadmiums. So as long as I'm not eating it, I should be fine. Gina was hoping for classes. Oh, I would love to do classes. I had one of my friends with a studio down in Provo invited me to do a workshop in her space. And sadly, it just kind of didn't work out. Really busy schedule, plus no one really signed up for it. So ended up canceling it. We have yet to reschedule it. But I do need to reset up on my Patreon. I actually really love mentoring people. It's like, it like gives me purpose and being to get to sit down with someone and find out what their goals are, where they're at, what are they, what do they actually want to do, and help tailor like assignments and feedback to meet those needs. I really love it. So at some point on my Patreon, I am planning to open up a mentorship tier. I just need to work out the logistics on how I'm going to do that. Because currently, I have no idea. But something I do have on my Patreon is I will share behind the scene images. I have like some process articles that go into the nitty gritty of like what tools am I using and what are the steps of my process and all that good stuff. I'm getting distracted by the clouds and I haven't even finished the foreground. If I do it, she's there. I'm assuming that's referring to the workshop. Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love that. Oh, that's gonna bug me. The angle of that mountain is totally wrong. Let's see if I can fix it. This mountain right here. Big boo-boo drawing error. That angle is all wrong. So let's fix it. There we go. Yeah, I'd love to see you. I don't know where you guys are located. I mean, obviously the workshop would be in Utah, where I'm at, but that would be totally awesome. One of my big dreams is definitely to have a large enough studio space that I could host workshops and the like. That would just make me real happy. Okay, you need to be grayer and lighter. Even more gray and light. Let's add a little phthalo turquoise. Yeah. There we go. That's more like it. That's more like it. Twin Falls, Idaho. Yeah, that's a little bit of a drive, but probably doable, I would imagine. Let's see here. Does that feel? Yeah, there we go. That feels kind of green. And the same way there's a little sliver for the river, there's a little sliver for the road. But I'm not going to paint that because I don't care about the man-made road. I just want the pretty wild scene. Let's get that sagebrush. Light hitting it on the top. And that foreground needs to be more golden. Yeah, that's way better. Come here, yellow ochre. Ooh, that's too yellow. Gotta keep it muted for that subtlety. Get a little more dark and yellow ochre down here at the very bottom. Ah, a girl weekend with your 17-year-old. That would be amazing. Okay. I will have to talk to my friend Caitlin. Yeah, artist friend. Her name is Caitlin Zupanik. She does a lot of dragons and stuff. Shout out to her. She's awesome. Um, but yeah, it's her studio space. So I'll have to reach out to her about getting that rescheduled and making it actually happen. But yeah, my goal, my workshop would definitely be on painting glowy stuff because that is my favorite thing to paint. If you look at my portfolio, most of it is glowy shit. Thank you for linking to Caitlin's stuff, Takor. You're the best. Okay, I need a smaller brush, and I think I don't often use bristle brushes. That's too big. But I think I want a bristle brush for this. No, you're not the right texture. What about you? You might do. You might do. Oh, that was the sound of my camera dying. I know that shutter sound. Give me like 2 seconds. And I will switch out the battery. And then I'll show you some examples of glowy stuff, since that's a question. Okay, battery out. New battery in. And where are we at on time? 2 hours. So yeah, if I actually stopped at the 2 hour mark, my camera battery would be just about right. And camera, ha, huzzah. Make sure we're in focus. So, glowy stuff. I like to paint magical things. So these are all mostly done, but like not yet varnished pieces. We have this piece, which was, and we'll zoom out, selected to be on the cover of this year's Infected by Art. And yeah, glowy stuff. She's holding a little glowy seed that she is planting onto the world. Lots of intense lighting effects and an additional little like glowy spheres inspired by, Life Spren, if any of you guys read Brandon Sanderson. Or this one might be too big to share. I'll leave that one up on the shelf. But I've also got another glowy piece here in the studio. That looks really dark on the camera. It's dark, but it's not that dark. Where someone's holding a glowing planet, Earth to be exact, by a glowing golden thread. So yeah, lighting effects and glow and stars and magical effects. These are the things that I love to paint and make me happy in my soul. So yeah, my workshop would be on how to do that, how to capture light effects, specifically glow. Oh, we'll zoom back in. I am close enough that I am planning to go until this is to a, like, everything is covered, at least, stage. Okay, where was I? I was starting to render sagebrush, and I wanted a bristle brush for that so that I can get some texture in there. A little more blue. You're too green. I want you kind of a yellow, maybe. I can't even words anymore. There we go, but that is some nice texture. Let's see here, things get more blue as we go over into the shadowed corner here. So we will shift from, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. Let's thin it out a little bit. That is quite the compliment. Thank you for calling me the female Bob Ross. Bob Ross was a freaking boss. I know there are people who give him crap for being a seller or don't listen to them. Like that was a man dedicated to his craft. Every painting he did, he would essentially do 3 times. He would do it once before recording to practice, work out the composition, figure everything out, blah blah blah. Once during, you know, the actual thing, the recorded bits that we all are familiar with. And then he would do it one more time on his own time to do the painting he really wanted to do without what I am experiencing, the pressures and challenges of being recorded, right? That's that's pretty boss, if you ask me. Oh, that's delicious. Getting those darks in there. Mm-mm-mm. Scoot that over a little bit. Make sure it's in screen. Now, the last study I did, this was the part I feel I struggled with the most, was getting the darks the way I wanted them. Because working wet into wet, these things definitely want to blend together and be soft, which is not quite what I want. They're fairly sharp edged and crisp. Let's let's see if we can just describe this hillside. Because actually these trees behind the hill really help describe that edge. So I'm just going to lay in that line, that beautiful curve to start. So we've got trees meeting the edge of the hill there. Mix up a little more paint. And that hill swoops from there. We've got a little break, like a single tree there. Come on. Go down the way I want you to. Boop, boop. And that hill again. Did I? I did that hill wrong. Okay. It's not about if you make a mistake. It's about when. I was too zoomed in. So I'm gonna kind of paint over that dark line I just did and scrub it out. Okay, that first part isn't bad, but where the hill actually swoops down is if I draw a vertical line from this mountain down, that is the top peak of the hill. And then it blends into where these trees are going to be. Little transparent oxide red, little phthalo turquoise, more transparent oxide red, more transparent oxide red. Yeah, that's more like it. Okay. That might be too dark. A thin it out a little bit and just kind of watercolor scumble this guy in. So doing things darker will bring them forward. If we add, that's too much. Brighten up the value a little bit. It's gonna push it back in space. So these trees in the back, I don't want to be as dark. Like they're pretty dark, but they're not as dark as the trees in the foreground. Burp. Little tree on the hill, little tree on the hill. All the other trees are behind the hill and are what help describe the hill. And they are bluer and lighter as they move. Maybe not that blue. Maybe a little more purple. Yeah, that's better. As they move back in space. We could go even lighter, I think. And warmer. Warmer and lighter both for those background trees. Those trees describe that hill. Got a couple of dabs there. Those ones describe that hill. That hill. Go a little bit darker for that ridge line. Couple little trees there. Couple little trees there, giving us a nice sense of perspective. So we get those little dark spiky marks just here and there. Down into here and here. Okay, back to the foreground trees, which I've kind of lost my puddle of nice dark paint. We'll bring that back. And this is darker than I really want it to be. That's because I'm expecting it to blend with the lighter layers underneath as I lay it down, which it totally is. So that's working pretty well. So I may want it a little more purpley to add to that sense of atmosphere and distance. All right, more happy cheese, embracing our inner Bob Ross. The man, the myth, the legend. Okay. That's blending even more than I thought it would. Let's get it nice and dark. Probably doesn't help that the pigments I'm using to mix this dark are all really transparent. Transparent pigments definitely blend with those opaque pigments. And what is a nice transparent dark suddenly becomes a lovely gray, which is part of the struggle. but I think it is creating that sense of atmosphere. So what I need to do is, rather than trying to paint each individual tree, is get the overall shape and sense of distance. Because that's what I really want these trees for. They are to describe the beautiful curve of this hill that they fall behind and add further depth and atmosphere to our scene. Oh, I should hydrate. Don't forget to drink your water, kids. Okay. Do I want a bigger brush? I think I just might. Describe that hill for me, baby. Burp. There we go. Actually, those two big trees there are a little bit closer towards us. They fall down into the foreground past the hill just a little bit. Excuse me. There we go. That's nice. A little bit of overlap. Oh yeah, I like that more. That's better, that's better. Makes it less flat when, in addition to the hills, or the hills, the trees falling behind the hill to describe the hill shape. Again, atmosphere, perspective, having a little overlap between those background trees and some trees that are closer to us on the hill. Just adds that much more depth. It's all about the overlap. And speaking of, time for the scary part. Well, scary for me. Adding in these dark trees in the foremost section. I might need a cleaner brush than what I have. Oh, that's really purple. Oh, and the really dark. Maybe I don't need a clean brush because I don't think I want it quite that dark. All right, because it's not blending with the stuff behind. So it's just going down. Nice and dark. Thin it out a little bit because of the thirsty surface. And just kind of get these shadows. Oh, that's actually, I don't think that's quite accurate, but that's really lovely. So something my brush is doing that I hadn't planned, but is kind of dope, is I've got more like phthalo turquoise. Oh, you can't even see it on the stream. It just looks black. Lame. But there's more phthalo turquoise towards the bottom of my brush. So just the way I have the brush oriented is creating this cool gradient effect. Let's flip it around to get those trees overlapping with our background. Yeah, yeah, yeah. here. So this is all big dark shade. Okay. We want that to be a little bit darker and a little bit warmer. I like the cool shadows, but the skylight is actually surprisingly warm hitting these trees, probably because it's sunset. So the light is bouncing off the clouds, and that light is warm. And let's soften this out. This area gets darker. We have it a little bit too bright right now. A little bit lighter up in there, but darker overall. And let's cut into those trees a little bit. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I don't think. Now the question, do I need the big tree on the right? Does he add or subtract from the composition? Let's get a little more depth on these trees first, and then I think we'll decide how we're feeling about that. Some more blues into the shadows. These nice deep darks. All right. Trying to envision it in my mind. Do I like him or not? Liking adding some of these blues. We're gonna jump around and maybe add a little more depth and texture to our midground while we think about it. What do you guys think? I'm gonna purposefully turn my attention to chat. You can see, well, the reference image on the upper right corner is cropped and a slightly different color than what I'm actually working from. The big tree right here. Worth it? Or do you like it more without it? Tell me what you think. I can't make a decision, so I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Yes, no, maybe so. Gonna refine that hill. Tree is worth it, adds character. Okay. This is always the scary part then. It's adding in those darks. over the top of the work I've already done. Okay, we can do it. We can do it. Okay, tree, gonna plot him out. He goes right there. It's got a fairly dark trunk. It's fairly warm, so we want some alizarin crimson. But we want it, yeah, but it's gonna blend with things. We'll just mix it into our pile. Work from that. Okay, right there. Oh yeah, and it goes down into the foreground. It adds one more layer of depth, all right. Holding the back of my brush, rotating from the wrist. Nice exhale. There, we have a nice straight line, which is always kind of nerve-wracking. Okay, now we want to add some light in on the other side. It started as a painting, now on to yoga. You're not wrong. We forget that painting is about mark making, and the mark making comes from how you move your body. And yoga is all about body awareness and control. One of my all-time favorite sculptors, oh, that's too warm, guy by the name of Ben Hammond. He's also a Utah artist. And he, I believe, also is a yoga instructor. And it makes perfect sense. Like he's a big muscly dude. He he does monument scale sculptures, like life-size people. I'm just talking with my hands. You guys can't see my hands. Life-size sculptures, and yeah, they're they're pretty intense. He's got some muscles to handle that work. But if you only build muscles and no mobility, no flexibility or awareness, it's not gonna make for the best paintings or sculptures in his case. Okay. Hardest part done. Let's add some branches. I'm like out of transparent red oxide. I should probably refill up. We really want to capture the overall shape more than anything else here. This is one of the things I'm still really learning to do with landscapes and scenes and struggle with is simplifying it. That I don't have to draw every single gap in light, every single needle, every branch. I just need enough to get the overall story and shape. And I think I need more transparent red oxide. Yes, I am talking with a fish in my mouth. There we go. Okay. Okay. Make a decisive stroke. We have to describe yay branch there. Want to leave that key light there. Oh, it just wants to blend. Ooh, let's be brave. Let's do this with a palette knife. Okay, okay. It sketches me out. Zip. Oh, that got some cool texturing, actually. That works way better than the brush for describing this tree. Don't know how well that would work on another surface, but on this nicely textured paper, that works pretty dang well. We need more of that mixture. Oh yeah, that does add a whole nother layer of depth. That, here, I'm gonna bump up the ISO so that maybe you can actually see what I'm doing. ISO, go up, up. I think that's a little blown out, but maybe you can actually see what's happening in those shadows now instead of it just looking black. Lead poison. I'm not working with lead. I can't get lead poisoning. Besides, it was the handle that was in my mouth, nothing else. Ooh, ooh, this is terrifying. This is super sketchy and scary. Oh, and actually, you know what? That's too dark and too cold. With that sky shining through, let's just scrape that off. Those need to be lighter and warmer. Let's go with the alizarin or transparent oxide red. And let these be a little bit warmer and lighter than the branches down below. We'll totally come in with our cloud colors. Work that back out. Here we go. Let's get that light shining through those branches. Okay, maybe I do want a brush because that's, while down here is super wet, those clouds are super duper dry. So I think I can actually work with a brush to better get what I want. Yeah. That's more like it. A bit lighter as the sky shines through. Lighter and warmer. There we go. And then back to the more intense and dark with the palette knife as we go over the top of the wet hills behind the tree. Guys, palette knives terrify me. They're just so much less control than a brush. That I think is working, and I think you guys made the right call. That does indeed add character and depth. Getting that one more layer of dark. We'll add a little more cooler darks over here and some texture. That's nice. Not too dark. Too bright. Yeah. Nice warm to dark gradient. Or warm to dark, warm to cool. Yeah, the fact that I can scrape these palette marks away without losing the paint underneath kind of goes to show you just how absorptive, is that a word? Absorptive this surface is. That would not work that way on a panel. Oh yeah, that's more like it. That's more like it. I just need to do with the trees what I do with the mountains and the clouds. Focus on the gradients and the warm-cold relationships and the overall simple shapes. I like those trees a lot more now. I want that to be absorbent. Oh yeah, I think you're right. I agree that absorptive, whether or not it's a real word, is better. Ooh, okay, that didn't do what I wanted it to do, but that worked really cool. Okay, hold on. Repainting branches that I just wiped away and did not mean to wipe away. I was trying to lay in a dark for the uh, trunk that had kind of gotten lost, but that actually works really well to bring back the highlight of the branch, only it did it on the wrong side of the branch. So let's get these darks laid back in. And let's get a dark laid in for the trunk. That dark vanished. Let's bring it back down. Oh, and I totally moved my trunk too. Hold on. Let's do. You go like there for our trunk. Trunky trunk. Now, come back. Palette knife. Okay. We are going to wipe away the darks. Right up the tree. Oh, it didn't do it like it did previously. Damn it, what did I do? How did I get that cool? There we go. That works. Get that highlight, blend back, blend back over a few of the darks to break it up. And I think, let's add a few more darks down in here to create that tree line. And I think that might be it. 2 hours, 45 minutes. I feel like still so much that could be done, maybe should be done, but we got the big simple statement. We spent enough time on it. I think for a study, it has served its purposes, and we can call it done. Hold on, that's bugging me. That's too big and dark. That's better. Okay, let's scratch my signature in. We'll do it over here. Just using the back of a brush. Probably 100 times faster than you would have finished. You know, that's one. I swear I get slower and slower and slower as time goes on, and I think it's just because I keep getting more meticulous and obsessive about my work. I was going to scratch it in, but let's actually paint in the signature. I could do something too. Well, and speed definitely does come from practice. And part of why I like to do these studies, these landscape studies in the studio, is I am, as you have seen, not a fast painter. If you want to see a fast painter, look up people who consistently and regularly do plein air painting, painting on location, like Brian Mark Taylor. That man is a wizard. He would do something like this in half an hour, and he would do it a lot larger. This is not a big painting. This is only like 8 inches by 5 inches. But yeah. So these are the landscapes I like to do. I love sunsets, as mentioned previously. And as anyone who's stopped to sit and watch a sunset knows, it changes by the goddamn second. So if I'm spending even half an hour on a painting of a sunset, what I'm looking at from start to finish is going to change so dramatically. I don't know how people paint sunsets real time on location. I mean, I assume the same way I do what I do, practice. But there we go. And signed. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining in, everybody. It was fun to have a group to hang out with me while I worked on this. And yeah, if you want access to the high res reference, unedited, I've tweaked and edited and recropped and stuff, but you can do that to your own stuff. That is available to my patrons. And I hope I see you guys again next week.